That's good. Yeah.
It sounds like you're looking for, if you potentially wanted to reopen this conversation about drawing maps.
Which I don't, goes to your question.
Well,
these guys, look, you got to, I don't, it's not what I want to do. Let me explain it, because I'm going to validate where you're going. I was one of, at the time, I don't recall, this may be overstated, but I thought I was one of a handful of Democrats in elected office that supported independent redistricting when it first was promoted. I support independent redistricting. I think it should be done at a national level. At the same time, I also am mindful next year is the 250th anniversary of the founding of this great country. And I'm very fearful about what's going on in this country. When Donald Trump calls in to the Texas legislature along the lines of the phone calls he made saying, find me some votes in Georgia, and says, find me 5 more seats in Texas, they're playing by a different set of rules. They can't win by the traditional game, so they want to change the game. We can act taller than thou. We could sit on the sidelines, talk about the way the world should be, or we can recognize the existential nature that is this moment. And so it took me a moment to reconcile my own feelings. Very proud of the work Governor Schwarzenegger and others did on that. It's a national model. Right now, there may not be a nation to model. And so my response to that, and I want to finish because it's the question you're asking, has been to explore what we can do about it. And that's exactly what I've tasked my team. And there are 2 alternatives if you're interested. You can call a special session and we can move forward. And we're exploring that. And we've had real conversations about that. There are also a number of legal experts that have come to us exploring an alternative to that. Through an urgency measure, the legislature can move forward with new maps as it relates to federal districts. And that is option that is also being considered. And both of those are being advanced in real time, not only with members of the legislature, but others that are interested because they feel the same pressures I do about the existential threat of what Donald Trump and some of these Republican states are trying to do.
But forgive me to ask a question to this. I'm having a hard time squaring how that does still, either of those options, not fundamentally bump up against the will of the voters who approved an independent.
Well, it's pretty easy. The option 1 is, by definition, reconciles that. By definition, because it would require those same voters to make a determination on the basis of current facts. We can be stubborn, and just assume everything's status quo ante. I mean, they've changed. There's no. Used to be 3 co-equal branches of government. One's completely disappeared in real time. The rule of law is being challenged every single day. Just ask all the mass people running around here. People are disappearing. Quite literally, a word you hear all the time. People are quite literally disappearing with no due process, no rights. The courts take forever to advance the cause of any reconciliation. You've got a president that's talking about recalling folks and judges that he disagrees with, or just completely dismissing, runs right up to the edge on the rule of law on decisions that are made by the courts and whether or not it works for him or decides on a whim, it won't. So things have changed, and so that would be the argument I would make. But again, I don't come to this lightly. This is not a point of, it's just a point of rationalization. And I hope a realization for everyone else. Everything has changed, and it's changing in real time. And I'm not going to be the guy that said I could have, would have, should have. I'm not going to be passive at this moment. I'm not going to look at my kids in the eyes and say I was a little timid or I didn't like the word that this guy used. I'm just not going to be that guy. I'm sorry. What more evidence do you need? I mean, everything that damn's happened last 6 months in this part of the state. So that's my approach, and to the extent that others share it, by definition, it requires the consent of our represented body, the legislature, and they'll make that determination. And if they choose the path of a ballot initiative, the people of this state will decide for themselves in the spirit that brought you that law in the first place.